This is Internet Marketing.
Hello, Kelvin Newman here, and welcome to the Internet Marketing Podcast. We've got a slightly different change of format coming up over the next few weeks. Recently, we had the Brighton SEO event, and one of the popular elements of the program there are panel discussions, where we get groups of people together to have live discussions around interesting topics around search and more broadly digital marketing. So we've decided to take a few of those panels and use them as episodes for the Internet Marketing Podcast, so you can get a bit of a sense of what those panels are like at Brighton SEO. So yeah, we've got one of those coming up. I hope you really enjoy it.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. I like how the 5-second countdown started and everyone just went quiet. It was quite ominous. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope everyone's starting to feel a little bit better from last night. I do apologise for sounding a little bit like a Sean Dye shorted off Wish at the moment, but it isn't alcohol related. But so welcome to the AI panel. I believe it's the second or third panel of the day, and there's a few more after this. And I'm pleased to say that I'm going to be doing less talking because I've actually got some really intelligent people around AI across me. So rather than me carrying on, I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the topics. Irene?
My name is Irin Rahman. I'm the Chief Data and Technology Officer at Wavemaker UK. And my speciality has been in digital data and tech for about 12 and a bit years. Too long, as I would like to call it. And yeah, really delighted to be invited to the panel.
Hello, I am Jonjo. I'm head of SEO at an agency called Box Chili. We are primarily an SEO agency, and I lead a team of 11 account managers and content writers and technical people. And I did have to go onto our website about page to count them all up before I said that today. I'm not an expert on how AI works, but I use AI every single day on my clients, and it's all about using it on our day-to-day clients, but also communicating to them when people have like a negative reaction to AI, how we can get that across and sort of show them the positive side of it. So that's kind of that's why I'm up here today.
Hello, I'm Mike. I work for an agency called 7 Dots. I'm the head of SEO. I've been doing SEO for 16 years now, which is just an alarming thing to say. Coming up through kind of the technical SEO track, so a lot of what I'm interested in with AI is what's the bits that actually solve real world problems, what the kind of components of technology that we can apply to create better experiences.
Cool. So last but not least, I'm Dan Taylor. I'm a partner and head of technical SEO at Salt. Been in marketing now about 12 years, which, yeah, now you actually start counting. That's scary. My main interest in AI is technical applications to like speed up auditing, how we can use it for process things and elements like, and also just debugging complex issues on sites and indexing. But that's a technical topic, and first of all, we're going to start off on something a little bit more broad stream, and that's just around how we can use AI and how we are using AI, especially since ChatGPT burst on the scene about a year and a half ago, and we've got the other plethora of AI tools that spin up every week or so. And that's around generative content. Jonjo.
So yeah, like I say, I use AI every single day for content, and I think that can be a positive thing. I think people have negative reactions about AI because what we see the most of on places like YouTube and LinkedIn and things like that are the kind of SEO influencers and SEO bros who are doing these entirely automated websites with completely generated content at scale. And we saw that they were having positive results to start with. The graphs were going up. Then obviously last month, the March update happened and they've come very quickly back down to earth. And there's a lot of people looking at it and saying, told you so. But I think we still can use these AI tools if we use them sensibly. We know that it's not against Google's guidelines. For example, in their update on AI content, they say rewarding high quality content however it is produced. So that's no uncertain terms that it is not against Google's guidelines, but what people are ignoring is the high quality part. If you're just churning out and copying and pasting a ChatGPT blog post, it's not going to be high quality. If it was, then absolutely go ahead and publish it with no edits. That's fine. It's not against Google's guidelines. Nobody can tell that it's AI. apart from the fact that there are specific words and phrases and linguistic styles. I'm sure you've all seen every single day, that let's delve into and all that kind of like nonsense that it says over and over again. But apart from that, it is fine to use AI content. It is just you have to be a little bit smarter about it. And so what I'm trying to push with my teams is how to think outside the box. I'm not putting a prompt in to say, write me a blog post on this and then expecting you to get a good answer. You're not going to get a good answer. But what you can do is use the tools for part of your content research and ideation process to come up with some specific ideas. I don't want to spoil my talk later, which is at 3:20, where I go into some detail on some of the specific workflows for that. I think there's some interesting ones that people can take away. But the general idea is that we're thinking slightly smarter about how we can use the tools. We can be creative with our prompting. We can understand the strengths of AI and the weaknesses, and then use it for the strengths without just spamming content. So yeah, and it's and I think I alluded to it earlier. I speak to clients every single day about content and content ideas that we're producing for them. And one of the big things that they always want to talk about right now is, are you using ChatGPT for this? Are you just doing that? And do I need to still keep paying you? And my answer is clearly yes, because you have to have somebody who understands how to use the tools. It's using it as a tool. One of the phrases I do say in my talk and every day is that I don't think of it as creating AI content. I think of it as using AI tools in order to create excellent content. And it's a mindset thing. It's about understanding the way we're trying to use these tools. So that's kind of an overview of what it is that I bring to the panel and my views on AI generally. And I'm finalizing conversation, questions about it.
I'll add a little bit to it as well. And you're absolutely right in saying that just AI content in itself is not enough. The whole purpose and the reason why AI has taken off as much as it has in these days, it's enhancing human ability, not replacing human ability. And I think it's something that we have to be very mindful, because we've seen lots of examples of in legal industry and in medical sectors, people have used AI and not in the most smartest way, even they're supposed to make you smarter.
Sure.
Whereas, in some cases they've come up with case representation where the AI has quoted something that didn't actually exist, a hallucination in the outcomes. To avoid that sort of mistakes, I think the recommendation from any AI expert is that it's not AI is a tool. It's like a tool, any other tool that you'd use. You'll not just use one thing, you'll use your own expertise to almost edit the content. So if you think of it this way, that instead of writing from scratch or doing a very manual way of, keyword enrich out, content right, you can now actually start from a place of, it's 50% done. I just need to edit it to a point where it's a very good quality content, because as you say, Google really doesn't care who writes the content. It cares about the quality of the content. So keeping that in mind and incorporating AI in a more useful way in our workflow and, mindful way in our workflow is always a recommendation that we put forward.
So kind of just to build on where you say, obviously, Google doesn't care who writes the content. Their actual official stance on this, which they published in April 2023, so this is literally pre-SG era notices, is literally AI and automation can be useful tool to create helpful content, but if AI is used for a primary purpose of manipulating search rankings, that's a violation of our long-standing policy against spammy, automatically generated content. So then in relation to, obviously we saw ChatGPT, we saw the big graphs going up, and then in the updates towards the end of last year, we saw them crashing down, and we've seen that again in kind of March. If it isn't the AI content side, then why have sites who've used AI and led on being penalised, or I say penalised, why have they been impacted in such a way in terms of traffic and rankings?
Yeah.
I think, so when AI came out, let's be honest, I think any SEO of a certain age probably remembers like the days when kind of one way to grow traffic. I think like the eHow model, when you just paid writers dirt cheap to spew rubbish out into the ether and then monetized it off the back end. And I think what happened was a lot of SEOs when ChatGPT came out were like, hey, that model suddenly works again. Because what sort of happened was the amount you made per article got less than the time or the cost of that writer. And suddenly with ChatGPT, that cost becomes negligible, and people are just like, I can do this again. And suddenly just waves of shit sort of sprayed everywhere. I think this isn't a new problem, right? It's just the economics sort of made it go away for a little bit, and now it's coming back. And I think that's what Google's kind of touching on is, so long as you're creating a genuinely good experience, cool, they don't care about the tools. But that kind of, I'm just going to pick up a keyword and churn out stuff that's already out there and just reproduce it and then get some spammy links and try and make a couple of quid. That's the thing that they're trying to clamp down on. So if you're in a business model that looks like that, that's where I think you're in Google's sights a little bit.
That's the thing. Nothing has changed, really. Their language there when they're saying about using AI to manipulate the search results, that's always been the case. Creating just spammy programmatic content is absolutely is against their guidelines, and it always will be. It always has been. Programmatic is fine if you're creating quality content, but programmatic is an issue if you're just churning out stuff for the sake of manipulating results and ranking. And I think it's difficult as an SEO because clearly everything that we're doing is to manipulate the search results and to try and get a keyword ranking. We know this, but when we're having our conversations with clients, and it's a mindset thing. It's about thinking, does this add value? If you could honestly say, yes, it does, then no issue. It's fine, publish that content. If it doesn't, then maybe get it to a point where it does before you go ahead and publish it. Nothing has changed. It's just that we now have this tool that can speed us up. One of the key things that you said is alluding to it being a jumping off point. You start and you have some kind of content. You're not staring at a blank page, because you need to have a human element, and you still need to get stuck in, and you can't just copy and paste it. A lot of people have sort of said things along the lines of, well, what's the point? Is it not faster just to write it? I am strongly of the opinion that using ChatGPT and other AI tools can speed you up and can give you better ideas and and you end up with a better end result faster. So we can do things that not at scale in a spammy way, but at scale, do things just faster for our clients and give them more value.
I think one of the things that we say at work, and quite a few people as well, that think of generative AI as a really eager intern. They really want to help you. They're just not there yet. But it's something that we have in the process of editing is always going to be easier than, as you say, process of creating from blank space. But also bear in mind that a lot of the, I would say, misuse of AI, the tool enables you to create content at a mass. And one of the things that we see Google, as you say, they're really honing in on curbing that, the search results shouldn't become just a place of trash. And they are doing a lot in that space, and they're using AI to actually curb that. So it goes full cycle. AI is creating the problem, but they're also using AI to solve the problem. So it's something that I find it really interesting in the sense that, it's not about AI is good or AI is bad. It's just who is wielding it is deciding whether it's used for good or bad.
I think one of the other key things, which everyone's got to touch on, is how necessarily, because Google's always had these policies against spammy content. For me, when Panda first came out, that was to combat everybody using Unique Article Wizard. Apologies for anyone who could remember using Unique Article Wizard, because that was awful, truly.
Definitely wasn't me.
or me, too much. But essentially, it's always had that kind of thing. It's always changed is the dynamics. And because the internet is now so much bigger, the level of content production, just in terms of new URLs, I think it was SEO Day 2 years ago, Gary Ilyash came out with a statement that 60% of the internet was duplicate from just a technical perspective of how bad the internet is built, and it's expanding at a far greater rate. So I think over the last year, we've inadvertently started to understand more about how Google handles quality thresholds and how it actually analyzes it. So with all the new AI sites that kind of sprung up, saw the big graphs, we saw the big SEO heist, which I'm sure everyone saw over Twitter and Mastodon and whatnot, just crash and burn. Part of that was also freshness, because we know, for example, if we submit a URL through Search Console, we give a freshness boost, and that can take a URL over the quality threshold for indexing. Freshness decays with time, drops back below. And I think that's why we've also seen on larger sites more URLs going into discovered, not currently indexed, crawled, not currently indexed, because it's fingerprinting at subfolder levels. Because at the end of the day, Google is not our friend. Google is a profit-making business, and he has to store data and crawl data. And if he can go, oh, there's 10,000 pages on this subfolder, and I've looked at the first 1,000 of all rubbish, I ain't putting 9,000 extra resource into processing it. And I think that's our levels of how we understand indexing, and how it's not necessarily AI's fault. It's just some assumptions of right to be indexed, or right to be crawled, and right to have that kind of capacity. So that's going to be more interesting, I think, as we go over time. Before we move on to the next topic, does anyone else have anything they want to add around content?
I think just that. So there's I think there's a Bill Gates quote where he said, like, people overestimate what technology is going to do in 2 years and underestimate what it's going to do in 10. I think right now a lot of the conversation around content with AI is about looking at kind of the workflow that we've all done for years and years and years, and saying, okay, how can I apply this to make it more efficient? But actually, when you've got with AI, there's the possibility there to create content in whole new ways, like not kind of, I'm going to write a blog, but like what, I think that's the really interesting long-term question, is kind of what can we create that we just couldn't create before? And can we do that? And can we create things that are going to be really great experiences for kind of customers and users, and using AI to kind of scale things or kind of develop content in unique ways, kind of learn things about them, meet them where they are. That's the stuff that I think is going to really kind of work over the long term, versus I'm just going to take kind of my production pipeline for a blog post and make the middle bit of it an AI instead of using a copywriter.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because one of the key things with AI right now is I'm able to do things that I simply wasn't able to do before. So you'll see in my talk later, there's a Chrome extension that I built, which our team uses for keyword research, and it looks at people also ask questions. I don't know how it works. It does work, and we find it really useful. I don't know how I built it, but it is there and it works now, and we use it every day. That kind of thing, I didn't have access to that before. If I wanted to create something like that before, I'd have to either pay for a tool or pay for a developer to create that tool. We now have access to some of these things, and we can be creative in how we manipulate the AI to build things that are useful to us.
This actually kind of nicely segues into the next topic. I don't know if that was intentional or not. But moving away from generative content and spamming the internet with blogs, how we can actually use AI for process development, for chunking large tasks, make them easier, and also how we can use it for better data analysis and better business information and stakeholder informing. Irin.
Thank you. That's what I do every day. Essentially, I don't do anything. I just basically type it somewhere. Something does it for me. As you say, I don't know how, but it happens. Actually, I do know how. I used to actually do large language model development myself, but I'm not in the guts of it anymore. But we are using various different AI solutions. So moving away from, as you say, generative AI. Generative AI is quite new. Everybody from out the bush have just come out and gone like, I'm an expert in AI because I can write a prompt. Whereas people who have been, so for example, myself, who worked in developing large language model, to this day, I know all the things I don't know. So I very much stay away from calling expertise on that. But the little that we know, and the tip of the iceberg that we are touching right now and utilizing on our process automation, it's significantly improved our ability to do tasks that we've done previously but faster, so efficiency gains, but also things that we've never done before, so creative outputs that we never would have imagined doing, not just the removal of requirement for experts for development purposes, because I can actually do plain text commands and get Python code written for me, which I don't even, I can even create an agent GPT with plain text who will then review said code so that I don't have to do anything. I just have to describe my output better. So all of that is available to us, and how we utilize it In an agency world, it's a little bit more utilization in the sense that we look at the RPA side of things, so robotic process automation, which has become much more prominent, but also workflow automation side of things. So our SEO team, Richard, who will be speaking, actually speaking right now as we speak, is on a stage talking about how they're using it. And essentially it has helped the teams think of a lot more options a lot quicker, and also remove a lot of the manual tasks that they would have had to do to, say, for example, find best keywords or find best contextual content and things like that. We're also not just sitting around for one, siloed approach of like, okay, just for data. It's the availability of various different AI solutions and integration into various different platforms means that they're all interconnected, and it overlaps in a very big way in the sense that now our SEO team works very closely with all our other digital teams or even out-of-home teams, because all the information helps understand who are the people you are communicating to, and it gives us a very good 360 view. One of the projects I recently worked on, which was, I think, was very good in the sense that it's called an audience brain, and essentially what it does is the algorithm thinks like a human being, just for the topic of understanding people's behavior, if that makes sense. So what that allows our teams, various different teams, so obviously that's a very good benefit for segmentation, but it also creates really targeted content and advises the teams on very targeted content and very targeted brand content, which it would have taken our team, I don't know, several weeks to come to, if it was just human being working on it. Having said that, of course, human beings are involved in the last pass, because it's not just the algorithm is just pushing it out and we're not checking anything. We add about 25 to 50% edit on what the outcome comes in, but it's still fantastic. I can get an output out in 4 days instead of 4 weeks.
So I know everyone else has other things, but I have a question just off back of that. So when you're doing 25 to 50% edit on the output, how are you accommodating for potential confirmation bias or biases from the editors going into that?
Well, we try to, here again, we rely on technology, funny enough, and there are custom solutions that we have built knowing some of the biases that we hold. So for example, algorithms, as you know, and I'm sure some of you have read as well, in some of the popular algorithms are producing a lot more right-wing content than more balanced content. We have custom rules in place to almost pick out on some of the known biases. It's not a 100% solution, of course it's not. Biases are ingrained within human beings as well, so why wouldn't the machine has learned from the people, so it will have built-in biases as well. But we try our best to make sure that there's strong governance in place and using technology to govern some of those output as well. But I think it's a really important thing that you raise, that how do we actually address those biases. But not all biases are, I would say, negative, in the sense that we, as you know, that we work with various different brands, and they have almost in the brief, they encourage you to make sure that our message is ingrained in what comes out. The only people I would say that the most non-biased content that we've created is government, funny enough. So it's something that is a challenge, but it's much better than how it used to be before. Before it used to be just my opinion, but now it's a very much federated way of getting the content out.
It's now a data-driven opinion.
I know, right?
So, talking about processes, this is the part of AI that excites me the most, because I think just looking, I know I'm talking about content and a lot of my expertise is on using it for content, but I really think that's just the tip of the iceberg for what it can actually be used for. And I'm thinking specifically in an agency situation, but also in-house. The biggest and most valuable insights that I've got from using AI tools have been building workflows to analyze individual pieces of content and also sites. So there's a workflow that I'll be sharing later where you ask it to have a look at the sitemap for your content, your post sitemap, and then group the content into content clusters, which is a task that would have to have been done manually before. And then look at the individual articles within those clusters, and then later to suggest gaps that you might have. So that informs your content ideation strategy. It's a task that used to be completely manual, and so you'd have to look at it and analyze it and spend a lot of time. And when some of our clients have X amount of hours that they pay us for, I don't want to be wasting so much time on the research phase when actually we could be spending that time adding value and giving them something that's going to grow the graphs, and they're going to keep coming back. And so there's, I think, thinking smartly about the things that we're doing now that are our pain points and are taking a long time are the things that we need to be looking at. How can we build AI workflows for these? And there's a few more that I won't go into now, but I'll be sharing later. And that's the most powerful thing for AI for me.
So on just moving to something slightly different, so obviously your talk was yesterday, which I was in the same session, which will be available on the Vault that Brighton has. Your process automation and thought on how we can use AI is a little bit out there, I guess.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of internal R&D at the moment that's some of it's on sort of very similar themes to you guys just said around kind of what's the grunt worky parts of the workflow and how do we automate that. So like we're using AI to, or some, not really AI, but we're using embedding vector data, so some of the technology around AI to kind of automate things like redirection mapping. And we've had a lot of success with that. It's got massively sped up that workflow. I think the other things we're picking up on actually, and this is particularly when I look at some of the juniors and kind of how they're working, we're trying to figure out ways to kind of amplify this, is computers are actually hard to use, right? Like I've managed to get a 16-year career out of knowing how to do a VLOOKUP. And they keep paying me, it's brilliant. And actually when you kind of look at what somebody in their first, second year doesn't know how to do that, and they encounter a problem, I'd immediately go, okay, I need to take this spreadsheet, VLOOKUP them together, do this formula. They're just going to ChatGPT and being like, hey, get this result. And then what we're trying to do is kind of keep an eye on what they're doing and say, oh, okay, is there a tool in that? Can we use that to kind of get more productivity out of kind of more junior people? And I think in a weird way, that's sort of, maybe in some ways, that glimpse of the future of computing is that like moving away from that idea of I need to know the specific incantations to kind of make the thing that I want the computer to do happen, and just say, I need you to combine this data and do this. It doesn't really matter if you click the right buttons in the right order. That's going to be a massive productivity unlock. And I think just looking at how juniors are working, they're already kind of just instinctively doing that. And that's something I think we're kind of very interested in, kind of how do we amplify. Also, just that idea that you can bounce ideas off a computer, like that's weird. Like you thought about that like a year ago, that would have freaked me out. But like watching the designers, and they're just like throwing ideas into a computer and just seeing how they look, and probably not the final piece, but just to kind of like do a workflow in their mind and kind of get thoughts out of their head and into a physical space. Like, again, how do you amplify that? That's a lot of what we're looking at as well.
Just to bring it to a little bit more at a personal level. So all the process automations are great. So a TMI, I'm a neurodiverse individual, so I've always struggled with long form content. So I genuinely just lose concentration when I'm reading through 96 pages of brief. And then I was like, oh, I don't remember what I said. So normally I would have had to read it at least 10, 15 times to almost like, what was the last sentence I read? I've forgotten. So that has always been a issue for me in school, in my education, in my previous workplaces, and something that I've always had to manage myself. Whereas a lot of the tools, things which are built into the browsers and things which are just on the fingertips these days, I can just upload a document and it can generalize the top 5 important points of that document. I don't have to worry about have I missed something really critical, or even annotations or meetings which are noted for you. So I am that person who cannot do the talking and the writing and the next thing what I'm going to say thinking. That's not me. Whether I'm presenting, whether I'm listening, whether I am, taking notes, I can't do them all at the same time. So all of those little things that, doesn't get that much PR like things that OpenAI is doing all the time. Those are life-changing for an individual like myself, and I see a lot of people in my workforce as well on a day-to-day. Spell check is not the, Grammarly is not the be-all and end-all of the problems that it solves, but it's just better writing, better communication, and helping people who, suffer from invisible challenges. I think AI has been really, really helpful. So, if nothing, that in itself is worth it for me.
No, thank you for sharing, Irin. I think it's there's a lot of things which ChatGPT and even what Google's showing with SGE whilst you're browsing, which I don't know if everyone's seen, as well as the wonderful whatever's going to happen on the SERP. So you can have the option in the sidebar to have SG on the fly summarise the page you're on, and also pull out the questions, answers, and hot link and all the rest of it. That's these accessibility things as well, which is being applied to, but it isn't as, I don't know, it doesn't get the same apocalyptic drama as I guess what most of it is in the SEO world. So we don't give it the front page on Barry Schwartz's website. So with how that is all going, I think it's also worth us just touching on, as well as like we've spoken about, using things in agency, how we can use things for day-to-day analysis, how we actually make sure we're in line. So it's like how we use AI ethically and in line with policies within agency world and also in-house. So I think that's worth touching on, in especially content production as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is something that we've thought about. I think it goes back to me, it's that whole mindset of creating excellent content rather than creating AI content, and we're using AI tools to help us do that. And I think as long as we have that mindset and that's the direction we're going, I think we're kind of okay. I think, so congratulations to everyone in this room, because you've officially made it over 12 months and ChatGPT hasn't stolen your job. And I think it's not going to, because we still need people like me and you to manipulate these tools. They've just become part of our workflow. And I just think that's a positive thing. There are a huge amount of workflow. So looking specifically at content again, and how it can analyze documents and give ideas. One of the key things that we do is read this article and think about questions that somebody might still have after having read it. And so it will give you these ideas, and you can understand what you either don't cover in that article, and maybe that becomes another article with internal links, or it becomes FAQ questions and things like that. There's a huge amount of extra value that we can get by using these tools. It doesn't understand what it's talking about, but it does a very good impression that it is. And the ideas that it gives you can be manipulated by a human, always by a human, to make our content better. I think that's a positive thing.
My plan is to start bringing that robot dog with the flamethrower into pitch meetings as a really subtle, you should really sign this contract. I don't know where that stands on ethics.
I can't remember K9 being that violent, but okay.
So I just wildly misunderstand doctoring.
Yeah.
I think I don't know with you, I'm not worried about AI is coming to take all our jobs, because I think even just this is less the history of technology, right? Yes, you get somebody makes something more efficient, but then companies grow and then they want to continue growing, and so that new level of efficiency just becomes the baseline. So yes, and individuals will be doing more, but then we'll be getting more success, and companies will want to grow, which will create more jobs, and the cycle continues. So there may be a little bit of a dip there. When you look through kind of previous technological disruptions, there's usually a little bit of a kind of readjustment, but I don't think it's we're all going to be kind of bowing to our robot masters anytime soon, unfortunately, which I really want to. I don't want a pressure of work anymore. But I think that human filter element is kind of the most critical thing. I mean, we've all seen some of the strange hallucinations that AI can make. So just kind of, there's always going to be that role. I hope there's always going to be that role to be that filter. We're going to live in a very interesting future if there's not.
I'm just looking at the time, but I will take a little longer to answer this one, because I'm very fortunate I get to sit on the UK government AI task force and the EU task force as well, so I get to influence the policies. that comes out. And I can tell you from my point of view, they are not enough to actually curb some of the challenges that comes from ethically, from privacy point of view of AI side. Just to take you back, if anybody remembers, 1996, there's no such thing as Google. We couldn't Google things, we couldn't Google Map, that term was just something mathematical. So things change, and when first Google search came into play, there was lots of, misnomer about, it's not going to work. Oh God, they are looking through all our stuff, and then you can find online and it's not going to be great. Or there was the whole other camp of like, this is going to change the world. Let's all buy stocks and share in Google. I didn't. Missed out. But it's just a example of how new technology or the appearance of evolution of technology and how quickly it can become part of our DNA. And yes, every single time we see something new appear, which is a new platform or a new method of operating in society, whether it's these days when you see kids with, when I say kids, that just shows my age, TikTok, and they're actually learning their lessons in TikTok size, bite-sized videos. And that's their normal way of understanding and learning and consuming information. And it's the same with the emergence of AI in its current state, because if you all remember, and people in the know, it's not all remember, not everybody was there in 1950, but the term artificial intelligence was coined around 1950. So it's been there in the research and the background for a long time. And machine learning is a subset of said artificial intelligence. So machine learning has been here for a long time. And we have learned from all of this, and we have already taken a lot of major step in ensuring that the biases that we have when it comes to, me being a person of color, that's something that I'm acutely aware of in some of the algorithm data training that we experience, I personally experienced myself. So there is a lot of work to be done, but I am quite hopeful that this is not going to be Skynet future with AI. It's very much going to be a Star Trek future with AI, in the sense that it will allow us to free ourselves from the mundane and actually do things what human brains are made to do, inspirational work and think outside the box. The algorithms still can't do that. I say that knowing that no one has announced the general artificial intelligence yet. So unless somebody announces it right now, in a year's time, I'll take that back. But I think from an ethics point of view, I think it's very important to understand how we train our models and what sort of information we're putting in our models, because this is the thing with the current algorithm, is that it will do what you teach it on. So the emphasis and the responsibility lies with every single one of us, in the sense that we are the users of the tools and the tech that's available to the world, and how we choose to apply it and how we choose to implement it in our work, in the world, especially in the media, because we are very much aware that what we're showing to our children or who we are targeting. So it's the responsibility lies with all of us. Technology will always remain the technology. It's not a great idea to blame the computer for destroying my toast. It did do that.
There's a little acronym in developer speak which I stumbled across by accident and worked out what it meant, and it was usually developers putting this on tickets I was raising, and they were calling it picnic errors. Sure. Picnic is problem in chair, not in computer. Yep. Which was a fun one to learn. But no, 1996 was a much simpler time. We weren't able to Google it, but we could ask Jeeves. For sure. Yeah. Which, sorry if I've just made everybody else feel old, and for everybody else, they're going, what's Jeeves? VX is that way. So the final bit we want to kind of go over before we open up the floor to questions is kind of more looking forward. So we're going into actual pure tinfoil hat and speculation territory here. I want to start this off with about 13 hours ago. Alphabet released their 2024 Q1 earnings report. And as always, Sundar Pichai has a lovely sentence in it to reassure shareholders that money is going to grow on trees and come their way. So those who haven't read it yet, the latest is that our results in the first quarter reflect strong performance from search, YouTube and cloud. We are well underway with our Gemini era and there's great momentum across the company. That's a real shareholder pleasing sentence, isn't it? Great momentum. Our leadership in AI research and infrastructure and our global product footprint position us well for the next wave of AI innovation. And I know at the moment, with people in the industry, myself included, we're speculating that SGE poetically might be released next month in May IEO, since it's a year to release, and that shows the niceness there. But kind of going to open it up now as about speculation of where do we actually see AI going over the next few months. And I mean, I don't think we have to worry for our jobs, but how do we, what can we expect from Google, Bing? Yes, Bing exists, and everyone else in the AI sphere.
So one thing that I strongly predict will happen is that one of the key trust signals in the next few years is going to be human generated or human created guarantee, and particularly on things like art, so novels, for example. So right now, with using tools like ChatGPT and others, it's not possible to create a coherent novel using ChatGPT entirely AI generated, but it is possible to do a kind of rough estimation of that and get it launched on the Amazon storefront, because I've done it and I've got a book on there right now which I've not read a single word of. It will make no sense at all, but it is entirely AI generated. I did this to test. They've got because all these platforms are scrambling to implement the guarantees against AI content on their platforms. So Amazon's one is that they ask you now to say and declare whether AI was used when you created content. You just lie, just tick no, and it gets uploaded and it's there and available for people to buy, and nobody has it. I don't want anybody to. It's just kind of a proof of concept. But the key thing is that it's going to get easier and easier. Right now, maybe we struggle to get 1,000 words out of ChatGPT. Maybe in a year's time, when we get GPT 5 and 6, etc., we can produce 200,000 words, which is a novel, and maybe that's coherent, and maybe it makes sense. You know, the very next day that technology is available, people are going to flood the Amazon store, and our platforms are going to have to catch up and create some kind of guarantee against this. And so, yeah, I see us walking through Waterstones and books having stickers saying 100% human guarantee, things like that. I think that will happen.
Just building on that, it's interesting, there's yesterday in your talk, again, it's available in the vault for anyone after this who haven't seen it. You spoke about the token limits and how they're expanding across things, and that kind of ties in with what Jonjo just said around how we can potentially see that wave of novellas coming about in coming months.
Oh, there's a wave of crap books. They all are. Kindle's going to be fun. I mean, I think that's a hardware limitation at the moment. It's just that's something that we can kind of look at the tech roadmaps with kind of things like TPUs. They've already got plans to kind of gradually raise that ceiling. So like I said, the ability to do long form documentation. I mean, I think Gemini 1.5 is already up to a million token limit, I think it is. And that's the point where you can just be like, here's my entire code base, fix the bugs. And it's got a big enough context window to do that. Whereas now, if you're coding, it's like write 5 lines of code and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. And see, I think that context window problem does go away in pretty short order.
Just for everyone's benefit in the audience who wasn't in your talk yesterday or doesn't understand token limits. So yesterday, I know you mentioned, so I mean, everyone saw 6-8 months ago, we had that big wave of people gloating around on Twitter, LinkedIn, X, Blue Sky, Mastodon, whatever else came about how they were using AI. What was the token limit around like ChatGPT 3 Turbo?
I think it was 16,000 tokens, which roughly works out to about 2,000 words. That's why if you have like long conversations with GPT and it starts forgetting something that you said several minutes ago, it's because it's kind of passed out of that token limit, and as far as it knows, that part of the conversation no longer exists.
So we've got to look forward, but we've gone from about a 2,000 word limit on 16,000 tokens to 1 million tokens on Gemini.
Yeah. And that's the point where you start getting into, like, rewrite this book, because now you've got enough letters for it to kind of process the entire book and not forget, like, the first 5 chapters.
Well, Kindle's going to be fun for the next few months. Irene, what are your thoughts?
I have 2 predictions. They're not mine. I'm clearly stealing them from someone else. They're a bit technical in the sense that the processing power of large language models will inevitably go up, but go up to a very ridiculously high. There you go. They're obviously getting it. But very high speed, because IBM recently announced that they are exploring qubits and biological data storage processes, which is essentially using DNA to store data. So data processing speed will go up, plus the storage space, thing that limits essentially what you were saying. The hardware limitations are being explored to actually now go, okay, it's infinitely more resourceful to use biological / quantum processing, which is great. So that's going to give boost to the ability to not just read books, my whole library. Can I just have that uploaded and I never need to look at a library ever again? Essentially a massive Audible, isn't it? And the second prediction is rags. And no, I'm not talking about the tattery little clothes. It's large language models that are expensive and time consuming to train on individual organization or individual topics. So smaller models are being explored, and Google is actually at the forefront of it. So is IBM. And so is Microsoft. But essentially what that means is that it will be much quicker and cost effective to train the model on your brand or just on particular account, for example, as we an agency work on, and not just content, but creative processes, planning, and it's faster. So that's something that also has been announced by various different organizations, and they're making it available for mere mortals like us to actually try and build it ourselves.
I meant to spam the internet with. So, with the kind of final thing, what is everyone's thoughts on SGE? Because I kind of feel we can't have an AI panel out mentioning SGE, or at least in part the seemingly secondary conveyor belt of AI products coming out. So like virtual try-on, the weird kind of t-shirt Tinder thing they introduced for fashion as well, and also the generative images for fake product shopping. What's everyone's thoughts on how that's going down? Like, do you think SGE will come out in a month's time? Do you think SGE will be phased? Do you think it'll be part of premium? Like what's the conspiracy theories?
You go first.
Sure. I think phased approach for sure. I think one thing as SEOs working on specifically on client accounts is that we need to understand how to track some of the searches and some of the data, because we're going to have to acknowledge that we're going to be living in more and more in a world of the no-click search. Answers, sometimes perfectly appropriately, will be answered within the SERP, and that's fine. And so certain types of searches that we maybe traditionally would have created a piece of content around isn't going to be as relevant anymore in quite the same way. Maybe we still want to create that content because we want to be in similar ways to featured snippets, we want to be chosen to be the provider of that information. But if people aren't clicking on it, then they're not seeing our call to actions and things like that. So how do we track that we've created this piece of content, they've found their answer, and later on they buy? How do we prove that value to our clients? That's going to be the challenge for me. Yeah, I do see it as it will be a challenge.
I think it's search results that don't have adverts on them. I think is going to be a space that you're going to see SGE primarily on. So Google sells links. That's effectively 80% of their business. I don't think they're going to stop linking to things. But I think it's Apple's fault, right? So the Apple rolls out kind of anti-tracking, tracking transparency. The value of banner ads falls, the publishing space, the informational kind of publishing space, it stopped making money, so it's kind of forced a race to the bottom, which is why every website has kind of become basically unreadable now. If you're Google, that's a real threat, because what then happens is something like GPT comes in, like OpenAI, and it's like, well, this is a better way of getting kind of answering information now than something where the information like bouncing around and banner ads are getting in your way and you can't read it. And then if you're like thinking marketplace, how does somebody disrupt Google? Well, GPT starts that, and then they start working their way down to kind of more commercial products. That's a way Google gets disrupted. So I think SGE, at the kind of pointy end of the funnel, it doesn't make any sense for them to roll out and kind of transact. And like generative AI for like transactional searches is a bit of a rubbish experience anyway. But in that kind of publishing space, OpenAI is a real threat. And then if you want to kind of protect your near monopoly, if you're Google, you need to squash that threat. And I think that's what SGE is about, even if the business model of SGE itself doesn't make a lot of sense in isolation.
SGE will be available. I mean, that's just, going to happen in one form or another. Very much in your camp, in the sense that Google's not going to take a canon to their business model and go, yeah, sure. Why not? It will help everybody, because, Google has been known to be helping humankind. But it's just one of those things that, of course, it will happen. But as many of us remembers, when the whole cookie apocalypse situation was, all the jazz. It's just one of those things. It's just working differently. Instead of in the cookie situation or when the PIR, the IDs were removed, we started looking at cohort-based targeting. Here we'll have to see more contextual and more quality-based content creation so that the content gets picked up. So it's just a different form of optimization versus the traditional form of optimization. So I'm not concerned of the future when SGE is available. I am more aware that there will be a change and we'll have to adapt. And, humans are very good at doing that.
I very much fall inside the same camp as yourself. I think it's going to be a phased approach. I think it may also be a free and a premium approach, because we have obviously Google flirting the idea of putting, obviously, they charge for certain Gemini features and they charge for other products. In industries where Google has high level of confident data anyway, so e-commerce, we're feeding it all our structured data from product feeds. Anything that has a local element to it, we're basically feeding it Google business profile data, local data. Travel, it went around 10 years ago buying loads of data off travel companies, and it has its own travel guide stuff. Those industries where it's relatively low bandwidth, I mean, if you went to do a 2-day itinerary in Berlin, it can pull the data accurately from Google business profiles because it's got that cached. It can understand opening hours, it can understand reviews, it's got all that sentiment already boxed up. It can understand what's different, so that will reduce hallucination. And then, similarly with ecom, it's already doing it in the US with the filters on the side. It's got a high level of confidence. Where I think you'll start charging is potentially for people like us who go out our way and search for, compare Beyonce's Jolene versus Dolly Parton's Jolene. That's a very off-the-fly thing. It's going to require bandwidth to do it. And they're like, do you know what? You can pay us a subscription to do that, because that is a wasted thing just to make us look stupid. So on my kind of note, we've got this is my maths going to work out here, Ruth. I think about 15 minutes for questions. 7 minutes. Okay, great. So very whistle stop. It's a good job our maths is not a part of technical SEO whatsoever. So yeah, Ruth has a microphone. If anyone has any questions for anybody, please raise your hand.
Hi, it was just a question in regards to AI content, really. Obviously, there's a lot of AI detection tools out at the moment with varying levels of accuracy. If you have a piece of content that is human written, and potentially like a case study or a PR, and so there's a lot of in-depth information on there, it is good quality, but it's flagging consistently as very high AI. Is it still worth uploading? Is it going to get flagged by Google? Should you amend it so that it isn't?
So my perspective on this is most of those tools are pretty much junk. If it's saying it's AI generated, there's been numerous examples of things that we know are entirely AI generated, rather entirely human generated, that the tools are flagging up as 100% AI. I'm sure there's examples like Harry Potter in the Bible and things like that.
Because as I say, someone put Genesis, the book of Genesis, through an AI tool, and they all like Genesis has been AI written. So
that's it. There's a novel in it somewhere, but it's not a it's not a reality. And so yeah, I wouldn't put a huge amount of weight into those tools. If you know that the quality of the content is good and you know it's human generated, then go ahead and publish that with no hesitation. It will be fine. I strongly suspect that mostly Google doesn't know or care if it is AI generated, as long as it is good, and it doesn't have those kind of buzzwords.
Yeah, but the buzzwords my biggest thing, because I also think you need to also take it back to who your audience is. So I've read a lot. I mean, I've unfortunately read a lot of AI content. You pretty much get a feel for what is and isn't AI, especially when you start saying moreover, furthermore, a blossoming nascent relationship and things like that. And it's like, yeah, but whatever. It's just making sure that's humanized to that point. Like, I don't think as long as it's accurate, users care either, but they do care when it is choppy, changing. I mean, like, we go back 12 years when we were doing the best holidays in Spain. They're usually quite cheap, because cheap holidays in Spain, because the Spanish holiday can work, and you just use the keyword stuff before Pand came along and punched that. So it's just similar to buzzword elements.
Cool, thank you.
Have you considered that GPT might actually be God?
We only have 4 minutes, 50 seconds left. If anybody would like to explore that with Mike afterwards, the bar is located that way. Does anyone have so many questions? I'm going to let Ruth orchestrate. I'm going to stop managing.
My question for the panel is, how are you communicating the challenges of SGE to your clients? Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty, but since majority of the panelists have an agency background in the business, what's your action plan? How do you communicate to your clients about the challenge?
So my whole talk yesterday was on better ways of communicating this around. One of the things I've started using is just trying to understand who your stakeholders are, and not so much, oh, by the way, this thing's coming. It's why they should care about why it's coming and relating back to them. There's a visual I actually stole from NASA, which I use for this, because, I mean, I don't understand what part of the internet I found this on, but NASA have a diagram that represents how seriously they treat a meteorite hitting the Earth threat. It's called a Torino scale, and I've just modified that, and now I put like, oh, Google's, I don't know, sneezed, the dot goes here, Google's rolling out SGE, it's probably somewhere around there, and that just visually helps communicate if it's going to be a page level, domain level, and likelihood. So there's multiple ways to, but ultimately stakeholder management and just being able to better relate it, because your CFO of your client doesn't care if, I don't know, there's going to be some new fancy, I mean, Google calls it SERP decoration, there's going to be some new fancy SERP decoration on it. What they care about is how that's going to impact sales bottom line. So that's how you tie it back. So the CMO probably will care about that, but they might care about their other KPIs. So it's that mapping process.
I think that is exactly it, in the sense that the client cares about the outcome, not how you get there. Most of the time I would like them to, because it's a really smart way of getting there, but they're very much in the mindset of that, is it going to hurt my business, or is it a good thing for my business, and are you prepped? As long as we can convince them of that, and that usually comes with measurement, data, and testing, and also honesty is the best policy. Just tell them of what you know. Most of us still don't know if it's, when it's going to be impacting the search world. So it's like, that is the truth, and just keep them abreast of what's happening.
Great to know. Thank you.
I mean, we've got just over 2 minutes left. We will be hanging around afterwards as well.
Hello, yeah, thank you. So a lot of the talk these days with AI is just discussing around what AI can't do yet. So you get a lot of arguments to say, AI can't do this, therefore I still have a job. AI can't do this, therefore I'm going to open up a business and just do whatever the gap is. So I think that my question to the panel is, if you could look into the future for, because you all have a great expertise in this. So what are the gaps that you think what are the AI gaps that you think will be filled in the near future? Therefore, what would be the skill set that you would recommend we spend more time on as marketeers in order to still continue bringing value to our businesses or our clients?
I'll take that one. I am passionate about that one. My recommendation to our colleagues, clients, or anybody who asks that, what is going to be in the distant future, not the 18 months, but the 5 years. Anybody who can confidently can predict that, grab them, lock them up, because they are essentially the golden goose. But more importantly, based on our understanding of how things are developing, I would say learn to brief better. That's probably the most important thing, because that's where most of the time a lot of the complaints that we hear about, AI can't do this, it doesn't really understand, it doesn't really, speak like a human being. The whole point of AI being able to generate these sort of, good quality information is when you can actually ask it the right questions. And that's going to remain as long as AI needs to engage with another human being, there needs to be a language that it engages with. And we would say to all marketeers, non-marketeers, anybody who's engaging with AI, learn to brief better.
Yeah, perfectly answered with 10 seconds left before Ruth starts throwing things at me. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank Irin, Jonjo, Mike, and yourselves for being here for this recording. We will be hanging around afterwards at Page Zero, just to kind of answer any questions you may have. But thank you very much for being here listening.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Internet Marketing Podcast, produced by the team behind Brighton SEO, the world's largest specialist digital marketing conference covering SEO, PPC, paid social, web analytics and content marketing. If you want to find out more about us and the show, you can check out the website, internetmarketingpodcast.org. And if you've not already subscribed to the show, you should hit that subscribe button. And can I ask a favour, if you are subscribed and you're enjoying the show, can you leave us a review wherever you're watching or listening to the show? And if you want to get in touch, become a guest on the show, or just generally feedback about what we're doing, you can always email me. That's kelvin@brightonseo.com. So KELVIN@brightonseo.com. Or of course, you can contact me on social media. So at LinkedIn or Twitter, my usernames are Kelvin Newman. See you soon.